どうも、カジノちゃんねるグッズのご購入です。今日はですね、プレミアムハンド祭りということで、プロはどのようにプレミアムハンドをプレイしているのか、それをね、皆さんにぜひ見ていただきたくてですね、この動画を撮っております。ということでね、百聞は一見にしかずということで、早速どうぞ見てください。
It's time to see the sharks, and there is one of those sharks, Nick Petrangelo, and nothing sharkier than a couple of aces to get things kicked off here at the 2,000, 4,000 blind level. He opens to 9,500, and Sam Greenwood has queens, Daniel.
Well, yeah, obviously this could be trouble. You know, you bring up a good point. We expect to see sort of a different brand of poker at the highest level when you have all the geniuses up against each other.
95.
High-level poker, a little bit different than what we saw from the amateur, or whatever you want to call it, non-pro table. Be interesting to see some of the plays we're going to... Wow, look at this. Re-raise, out of position with the queens.
And I do think that we have witnessed a lot of cautious play on the pro side of the bracket prior to the merger, as they definitely want to allow themselves not to get busted before the field merges, and they have an opportunity to play with these proverbial whales.
Yeah, I mean, you would think so. You think to yourself, well, I mean, I just want to be in there for the next stage of the event, but these guys are going at it. Obviously, both have big hands. Nick looking to get it in with the aces.
Petrangelo has won just under 900,000 playing this year. It's the first year in which he hasn't eclipsed $1 million since 2014. So he's either playing a lot less, or these aces aren't holding as often as they used to. 4 bets to 160,000, the dilemma for Greenwood. And once the 4-bet comes in from Nicky P, Daniel, Sam is definitely going to be facing a very narrow range.
Yeah, no question about it. And I think call is the right play, as deep as they are. It's just, you know, to put in another 700,000 with queens without seeing a flop is a little bit too aggressive, I would say. And this is a flop that's trouble for Greenwood. No overcard to his queens. If it came an ace or a king, it'd be easier to get away. But with 2 queens on this board, if he called pre-flop, he's got to continue after this flop and likely lose all his chips.
Especially when facing the downsized 75,000 chip C-bet. Now the 6 of clubs on the turn, the sort of board texture that doesn't rate to have connected with either of these holdings. And best case scenario for Greenwood here, Daniel, he's up against an ace-king.
275,000.
Well, obviously he's got him probably ranged somewhere in the neighborhood of aces, kings, or ace-king. And at this point, you know, if you've got 2 queens, you obviously beat 16 combinations versus, you know, just the 12 of the aces and the kings. The question for him now is, would he play ace-king this way, or would he check back the turn? Tough to get away. Wow! That's an impressive laydown there with 2 queens. I don't know that many players in the world could ever make such an impressive laydown. Really, really tough to get away from queens on that board.
It's going to take a lot of good decisions to work your way to the final table of this richest ever poker tournament, with that £19 million first place prize hanging up there. And queens didn't work so well for Sam Greenwood. It could have ended much worse. Here he is with 2 jacks, the opener, making it 9,500 to go, and Danny Tang with black 3s.
Well, it would have been a lot worse if anyone else had those queens, but Sam Greenwood, really with a high-class, world-class laydown on the turn with no overcard. Pretty impressive.
This just isn't fair. This isn't real life, is it?
Unbelievable.
Nicky P again with aces, while Greenwood has a big pocket pair. And Petrangelo 3-betting to 110,000.
Well, this is a different situation. It's going to be more difficult for Greenwood to narrow his range, because this could be what's known as a squeeze spot, where you're just re-raising out of the big blind hoping to pick up the pot pre-flop. So he's not going to have him as narrow as he did when, you know, Nick 4-bet, bet the flop, and bet the turn. So interesting to see how that affects the action post-flop.
Queen 8-7, 1 overcard to the 2 jacks out there after Greenwood called and Tang laid it down. So 235 in the middle, and Nicky P will reach out and bet 60.
It's about a quarter pot bet, which is pretty standard. It's a newer school sizing that I think, because of a lot of like computer work that's been done, realize that this is actually a pretty good sizing in this spot. And so obviously with jacks at that price, you're going to definitely peel and see another card.
And the queen pairing is a welcome sight for the 2 jacks. But unfortunately, Greenwood is cooked.
I mean, if you're Petrangelo, you got to worry a little bit about a hand like ace-queen or king-queen. You did get called on the flop, so Greenwood has something. probably not just an ace-high type hand. So it's either a pair or he, like in the hole, like jacks, or he actually flopped top pair. If so, he's going to hear from Greenwood and then be in a tough spot. As we know, it's just the jacks.
And it's a little bit too much, apparently, for Sam to lay down on this occasion on the turn. So he calls the 120, and now a 10 comes off on the river.
Well, notice before, Greenwood was able, as I said, to get away on the turn with an overpair. In this case, without an overpair, with Nick Petrangelo's range a little bit wider, he's an aggressive player. That goes check, check on the river. Wow, so no value for Petrangelo. He likes to shut it down, which is why that first laydown from Sam Greenwood was so incredible. Against a player like Nick Petrangelo, you pick up 2 queens, which is an overpair, you're usually going to get it in.
And you get a look now at Makita Badziakuski with King 10 of hearts up against Jungle Man Dan Cates, who's got the better hearts. Open to 10K out of Makita, known as Bads.
Yeah, Jungle Man looks comfortable.
Why wouldn't you? You got 2 elbows in the traps, plenty of pressure. Oh, come on.
This is crazy. Do pros just get aces more often than the non-pros? Because I didn't see this happen at their table. So obviously going to re-raise with the aces here from the button.
3-betting to 41,000.
Makita could go a few ways here. The re-raise is coming from the button. You are against an accomplished player like Vogel saying. The price is relatively cheap, 30,000. You're playing deep. You have a hand that plays pretty well post-flop. I don't hate the call here.
And the opportunity to close the action for Cates, but is this ace-6 suited worthy of another 31?
I think ace-6 suited plays a lot worse than king 10 suited in this kind of situation. He just says, forget it, I don't want to deal with these 2.
So down to heads up, and the flush draw shows up right away for Makita, who checks it over to Vogel.
Wow, interesting check back there with aces. Setting a little bit of a trap, also pot control, keeping the pot small.
Not impossible for Bads to have binked a jack on the flop, and by checking back, Vogel prevents the big check raise and dilemmas moving forward. Now a queen on the turn, and Bads with the open-ender and the flush draw, semi-bluffing 72K.
Oh, this is a very big hand. Obviously, flopping a flush draw is a big deal, but now the open-ended straight draw as well. You've also got an opponent who didn't bet the flop. He could have been on a steal with something, weak like ace-3 suited. It's a good opportunity to bet here. You're going to call a bet anyway. You might as well take the lead and maybe win the pot if he folds. Wow, there it is, the straight.
Bingo, 9 of clubs, giving Bads the king high straight in an almost $250,000 chip pot here.
Well, about 250,000 in the middle. You might worry a little bit about clubs. There's obviously full houses possible. But if you're Makita, you got to like your hand and want value on this river. Question is, what's the bet size? And he bets 280.
Over betting the pot, and when players do that, Daniel, obviously there's some polarity, and you begin to wonder, is my man bluffing or does he have it? Because there's not a lot in between.
Yeah, but then, you got aces, you got an overpair, the hearts missed, a lot of other hands could have missed. Pretty difficult to fold aces, getting a price that you are, which is about 2 to 1. You'd have to really know your opponent, know his range in this situation, the types of hands he would call a 3-bet, bet the turn and then fire big on the river. So I think Christoph's, wow, this is amazing.
Above the rim stuff.
We are seeing some high-level poker early on here at this pro table. This is not easy to do here, to fold aces. Incredible laydown.
Meanwhile, back over to one of our featured tables.
Ah, there we go, the aces. You haven't seen those in a while.
The aces have returned, and this time Michael Soiza will enjoy them.
That's the difference. The pros play the aces.
Might be premature to say enjoy them. We never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure.
A couple of 3s hitting the muck. Trick it with king-queen offsuit, no hesitation. And Bryn Kenny, 2 10s, too much to fold.
Well, it's a good lay down there from Trickett. Trickett, he does have a little bit of an old school vibe, as we touched on. He's been around, doesn't play like, quote unquote a robot, plays by feel, instinct. And to fold king-queen, most players would have played that hand. Kenny with the 10s.
And an overpair on the 9-4-3 flop.
Well, this is big trouble for Kenny. Soi's stack is only 330,000. Very reasonable to expect both players to get their chips in the middle.
as much of a reputation Bryn has for being super aggressive, he also has really good instincts too.
Well, I mean, yeah, any good player today you look at that's aggressive, they have texture, they have layers, they slow play in certain spots.
Kenny calling the 18K C-bet as the board pairs on the turn.
60,000.
60,000.
Now up to 60,000, the number out of Soiza.
Yeah, this is a spot where Kenny could just decide to raise.
Call.
Well, he's slow playing. Yeah, I think he feels pretty strong that he has the best hand here, but deciding to play it slow.
I think Soiza's got a bit of a snug table image too. I think Kenny is just proceeding with some caution.
Could be, could be. Now Soiz is sitting there with just a little over a pot-sized bet. You would imagine now is the time to just go ahead and stick it in, but he chooses a smaller sizing, just 150,000.
But enough of it that we presume the rest will go in, and we're not going to be able to bluff our man.
Actually, now Bryn I don't think is going to raise. You know, there's not a lot of value in doing that. If Soiz is bluffing, he's not going to call.
Aces.
Well, Bryn's going to see the bad news, but you know what? That's a spot where you notice that Bryn saved himself 100,000 in chips by slow playing.